And thank you for joining us on this edition of the New Mexico Motorsports Report, another episode here on the Proview Networks. I'm your host, Editor-in-Chief for the RacingExperts.com, Dominic Otagon.
I'm David Swope, host of the New Mexico Motorsports Report on ESPN Radio 1017 The Team.
And I'm Brooklyn Green, sideline reporter for the New Mexico Motorsports Report.
A lot of racing this weekend, A lot of NASCAR headlines to get to, but we get started with Kyle Busch, who put on a dominating performance at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway on Sunday. Busch started on the pole and led the most laps in the ISM Connect 300. The win advances Busch to the second round of the playoffs. The victory was Busch's third of the season and the 41st of his career. Kyle Larson was second, and Martin Truex Jr. rebounded to finish in third place. He's going to the next round, guys. It looks like Kyle Busch and Martin Truex are the class of the field.
Well, and I think all of us picked them both to go to the Final Four. Pretty dominating race that Kyle Busch put together. But, you know, towards the end, you know, you had Kyle Larson that kind of snuck in there as well. And Martin Truex actually quite a rebound to finish where he did, because it looked like he was going to get caught in that. But you know, the accident taking out the number 4 and, of course, taking out the 41. So it's going to be interesting for Stuart Haas as they try and rebound into going into Dover this weekend.
Looks like Harvick has enough of a point cushion going into Dover, and he was in a must-win position about 2 years ago, actually 3 years ago on his championship run, went out and won at Dover. But Kurt Busch in a must-win situation, which we'll talk more about points later, but I was just impressed with the Toyota dominance, and there was a graphic that NBC Sports talked about. In the last 4 races at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, Toyota's led over 90% of the laps. And on Sunday, guys, take a guess, how many laps did a non-Toyota driver lead?
I have no idea.
Me neither.
1 lap.
Wow.
Kyle Larson finished second. He led 1 lap during a cycle of pit stops, but Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. split up 299 laps combined.
Wow.
That's pretty dominant, and of course there was a lot of talk this week too. You know, following up on the Kyle Larson issue, or the Chase Elliott issue with the sticker, and then the sticker on the spoiler, and now of course Dale Jr. has come out and made some comments about burnouts, and of course Martin Truex with the burnout that he blew the tire out. So now there's this talk about, well, you know, I mean, they'll be able to cover up their cheating and stuff like that. Pretty harsh words, but you know, talking about, you know, making it through the points and everything, NASCAR definitely made an example of Joey Logano. Having to sit for 50 minutes on the pit road, was basically put into the penalty box. Logano was forced to sit out the final practice Saturday at New Hampshire Motor Speedway in his car. Logano failed inspection for failing qualification 4 times, and NASCAR penalized the driver by having him sit out the final practice, full helmet and suit on pit road. Logano had to start the race from the rear of the field Sunday. He went on to finish inside the top 10. Do you remember watching the longest yard?
See, I think that's a great question, because I don't know if you guys remember the movie, but the warden would punish the inmates who he felt were not doing well by putting them in the hot box. That's what NASCAR did with Joey Logano. You're sitting practicing in the hot box. You got to be in 130-degree weather with the fire suit and the temperature of the car. You're sitting back there. I think NASCAR really made an example of him this weekend.
Well, and actually, if you think about it, I mean, nobody has failed 4 times and actually had to sit out there the whole time. I was listening actually to Kevin Harvick on his podcast, and he was talking about how they should have just basically taken him to the garage and just shut the garage and said, hey guys, you can't work on the car, because that would actually be more of a penalty. But it was kind of silly. Dale Earnhardt Jr. actually came out in a tweet and referred to it as silly, but also said it was like, you know, putting a dunce cap on. You know, what were they trying to accomplish? I mean, Logano's done plenty of things to be a dunce on his own, but I've never actually seen anything like that in which they took such a severe role. But it's in the rule book, you know, and you got to go through on that. But on one hand, I was trying to think of any possible reason why. I mean, Brooklyn, could you think of any possible reason why you just have to go sit over there?
To get people to laugh at it, honestly. I mean, yeah, like that tweet was, don't do the crime if you can't do the time, but
right.
I mean, how embarrassing for Joey Logano, number 1, and number 2, like, come on, NASCAR, come up with something a little bit better than that. I mean, like you said, it wasn't even much of a penalty other than he probably was breaking out a sweat, but other than that, it's kind of ridiculous. But
well, you both can attest to this, having raced locally. Have you guys ever seen anything like this as a competitor or as a director on the local side?
No, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, my first quarter midget race ever, I got black flagged and I had to sit in the hot chute. But I mean, quarter midget race is a lot shorter.
And not 130-degree weather, right?
Yeah.
How about you?
And actually, I think you guys probably teched more than we did over at the big track.
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of times it was just the top 3, and sometimes they would make the top 5 go, to tech. But tech might have been weighing the car, checking ride height, and one other thing. So that is a big actually concern with trying to keep everything equal.
Yeah.
Is actually if you're going to have rules, being able to enforce them. I know for a fact one time at the track, the scales even went missing. So they weren't even scaling the cars. So if you weren't in the top 5, you might not have been aware that they weren't really teching. So they tried to keep it on the lowdown with that. But tech is an important thing. But that, we've all talked about the rule book being that thick. It's how amazing. And I've heard a lot of comments about the fact that the cars are just too dependent on aero that we've got away from racing. And if we got back to maybe taking some of the aero off the car, maybe there's fewer things to tech. So, the golden rule was don't mess with tires and don't mess with fuel. From then on is pretty much whatever you can get away with. So,
do we see NASCAR making any more outlandish penalties like how we saw this past week? And is anything gonna? I don't know. We're gonna see like more of a slippery slope on this as the season concludes.
Well, my favorite part is that you referred to it as outlandish. They probably wouldn't. So we all know that if you weren't able to watch last week's episode, it's because Formula One basically slapped our hand. So we got to be careful because if NASCAR is watching, we might get our hand slapped on this one. So outlandish. There's plenty of rules that are silly. And as the cars evolve, sometimes the rules become out of date. They were meant to catch something else, and now they caught something innocent. This was really kind of silly.
Exactly. Rolling through practice or the pre-qualifying tech inspection 4 times. What other penalties should warrant that?
Sitting in your car.
Yeah, should that be?
I have no idea because think about Logano. He said he had a lot of time to sit there and think. Logano had nothing to do with it. Logano doesn't do anything with the ride height or change the tires or basically he just sits in there and steers, right? That's all he's got to do. It's a very easy job that they say, but anyway, no, I joke. I don't know. It's just silliness. I mean, if you really want to penalize somebody, don't let their sponsor's name on the car be seen, in practice. I mean, that's going to get somebody's more attention.
That's bad PR.
That's terrible PR because now it's in the garage and the garage door's shut. I think Kevin Harvick was actually right that makes more sense because otherwise, what if something would have happened where somebody would have lost control of the car in the pit road and then slammed into his car or whatever? I mean, that part is just silliness.
Did you see what his wife said? It's like she felt like she was in jail.
Right. She went and took him a bottle of water.
I know.
That is another comment. Is there were other people that were walking up doing selfies and stuff like that. It did create kind of more of a dangerous situation because I don't really actually remember during a hot pit, during a live practice session that there's people walking on pit road. I mean, how are you taking a selfie on pit road, when the track is hot?
Sure. And I saw one photo. Logano's right there next to the pit wall, and there's a fan who's leaning over trying to get him something. I don't know if he was trying for an autograph or just, hey, Joey Logano, touch my piece of memorabilia, who knows what. But really interesting to see how fans were really interactive with this.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I guess we could, go to Craigslist and see if that's for sale on there, right?
Automatic value by just having Logano's glove touch that piece of memorabilia. We'll see. But
I was just thinking about the piece of pizza that he left when we were at Phoenix last year. So maybe you keep that piece of pizza and say, hey, Joey Logano, look, is his overbites on the pizza?
Oh Media Center Pizza from 2016. I like it. I like it.
On.
Well, NASCAR Xfinity Series also had some great racing this weekend. The Xfinity Series saw its first-time winner of the 2017 season. Utilizing fuel strategy, Tyler Reddick led the last 40 laps in the VisitMyrtleBeach.com 300 at Kentucky Speedway on Saturday night. By the time the checkered flag flew, Reddick had over a 14-second lead on second-place Brendan Poole. Justin Allgaier went on to finish in third place. Other first-time winners this season are William Byron, Ryan Preece, and Jeremy Clemens. Yeah, seeing that 14-second lead on Saturday night, that was really crazy to see how that third stage just played out with a long green flag run. And Tyler Reddick, who's running part-time in that series, came away victorious.
Extremely dominant. I mean, 14 and a half seconds. I mean, he was lapped up to like 8th or something like that. I mean, that was pretty tremendous, and you consider he's not a full-time driver. We know he's a full-time driver next season, but that's pretty dominant. What was also really impressive, Justin Allgaier was super aggressive in that race. Ended up having to come back from 2 laps down to finish it as well as he did, finish 3rd. But Brendan Poole and Tyler Reddick, both Chip Ganassi cars. That's pretty impressive. They really put something together.
Yeah.
Nice 1-2 finish. You would have thought the 42 would have been driven by Kyle Larson in that situation with that big a lead, but it was awfully awesome. I would like to also talk about Ryan Preece, if you guys would like to talk about him for a minute.
Sure.
Tremendous. He's got a first, a second, and a third in 3 drives, right? And the guy says he's getting no phone calls. No phone calls because he doesn't have, sponsorship, basically. That floors me. I am absolutely blown away that a young man with this much talent doesn't have a sponsor calling him. And he does, a fantastic job, racing modifieds as well. So that just blows my mind. I couldn't believe that the phone isn't ringing at all.
I agree. I mean, the sponsorship deals going on right now are just, they're so surprising. It's like, you never know what can happen. You have drivers that don't have a seat that should, and drivers that you're like,
Why do they have a seat, right?
It doesn't make any sense to me. It's confusing.
I think what should be noted about Ryan Preece, he was the points leader in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. He elected to skip his Saturday night race to run the Xfinity deal because he wanted to run a top-tier equipment ride. And in his previous 34 Xfinity starts, because he ran a full year last year, one top 10 finish. Right. So that just shows the difference in equipment between a JD Motorsports and a Joe Gibbs Racing. And other racing this weekend, Brooklyn included the Truck Series.
Yeah, Christopher Bell will be moving on to the next round of the playoffs in the Truck Series. Ryan Truex put up a fight, but Bell passed Truex with 17 laps to go in the UNOH 175 at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Bell will be guaranteed a spot in the second round of the playoffs. The Kyle Busch Motorsports driver has 5 wins on the season, the most of any driver in the series, and 7 career wins in the trucks.
Just reminds me of William Byron last year. It doesn't matter who you're putting in that truck for Kyle Busch Motorsports. They produce the sponsorship, they produce the raw talent, and they're winning.
Yeah, it didn't turn out as good for William Byron. I mean, because he had some motor issues, ended up not making it into the final round, and he would have dominated. But yeah, I mean, remember we were at PIR and he didn't make the final 4.
Devastated.
He was devastated. But you know what? Where I have a lot of respect for him is he took every interview. Remember, we're standing there, and regardless of how emotional he was and everything, he stood there and took every interview. That's when I actually had a ton of respect for him. It's like these young men, not only young men and young women, granted, have such poise, to be able to handle these situations. You can contrast people like, Smoke, like Tony Stewart or whatever, that always have other issues, but at 15, 16, 17 years old, to be able to handle these situations, I can't say that I would do as good a job.
Yeah, he handled it with grace, and Christopher Bell seems to handle that same way. We'll see how this round of the playoffs goes and who gets eliminated in the Truck Series. We'll have more on the points later, but for now, you are watching the New Mexico Motorsports Report here on the Proview Networks.
Long pass, and that's going to be caught and touchdown.
Each side of a 1st and 10. And Nolly's going to go deep on 1st down, and that's caught, and look out. It's a foot race down the sideline, and I don't think anybody's going to catch him. It's going to go 80 yards for a score. Mikey Avidras, here's the squib kick forward, and now is it a reverse or a fake reverse? It's a fake reverse. Look out, a lot of speed down the sideline, and gone. Gonna take it all the way, 80 yards, it's Blaine Grant. Don't blink, another touchdown.
Teams are going for 6.
Trujillo, he's got plenty of time again.
He's going to roll. He's under duress, fires to the end zone. Touchdown. What a grab. I don't know, 15-yard penalty it is, first down and 10, and here is the handoff to Isaac Torres, and look at him go. Isaac Torres, shot out of a cannon, and he's in. Touchdown.
That maybe that might be one of the first passes he's had a chance to catch this year. You know, if you're catching a quick slant, and that's complete. And look, a lot of extra yards out in front. Shot out of a cannon, and Fernandez is going to score again. So the end of that game set.
Really in control right now. Here's Bird and the quarterback keep. Watch out. A cut to the near side. Jordan Bird is going to go all the way. Touchdown. You can't stop him today. The Vikings at the 40. Dami, the 7-step drop, throws out to the right. Intercepted. Going down the left sideline with some room. To the middle of the field. Might be a pick six. One man to beat. Cuts it back on the inside. 20, 15, 10. One more cutback. And a touchdown. What a fantastic return for an interception. Cuts to the outside and look out. Jordan Bird off to the races. You're not going to catch him. Touchdown. What a move. Look in. We'll send Erickson in motion. And the handoff is just, no, it's a double option. And there is Erickson. He's got a lot of speed. Look out. Watch out. Erickson shot out of a cannon. And he's going to go. Andrew Erickson, 99 yards.
And welcome back to the New Mexico Motorsports Report here on the Proview Networks. Brooklyn Green, David Swope, I'm Dominic Ottagon. There were a lot of headlines from the race weekend out at New Hampshire. Here's a little report on what one of our correspondents saw out there at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway this weekend.
This past weekend saw the NFL and the president go head-to-head. President Trump called for team owners to fire players who protest the national anthem before games. While players and team owners in the NFL across the league stood in solidarity, NASCAR owners took another approach. The president took to Twitter saying, "So proud of NASCAR and its supporters and fans. They won't put up with disrespecting our country or our flag." They said it loud and clear. Richard Petty and Richard Childress were among the vocal NASCAR team owners, with their opinions on what they would do if members of their team protested the national anthem Sunday in New Hampshire. Our correspondent, ESPN Albuquerque's John Haverland, was at the racetrack Sunday and described the environment he saw.
I don't think there was much of a difference, but I will say the singer of the American national anthem was very enthusiastic about doing it. His rendition of the Star Spangled Banner was very, he put a lot of emotion into it. It was, honestly, it was one of the odder renditions I've ever heard in my life, but he was definitely passionate about it while he was singing it.
Among the owners to share their opinion, too, was former NFL coach Joe Gibbs. He spoke with our John Haverland Sunday post-race.
So much has been sacrificed for our country and that flag, and I think we really feel that heart to heart. Most of the people that I kind of feel like that are with us, and so I think for us, it's just a big deal for us and to honor America.
This is Dominic Ottagon reporting.
So whether NASCAR was wanting the spotlight thrown on them or not, they had it this weekend with the national anthem and the talks of protests, and even drivers were vocal about it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Dale Jr. actually came out with a tweet, and he said, all Americans are granted rights to a peaceful protest Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. That was a quote from JFK. And I tell you, I think that was good because it was leaning very much to one side, about how, NASCAR and nobody, had a protest or anything like that. But I love to get back to talking sports, because this has dominated a lot of things, and sports is really where we go to get away from these things. So there are plenty of other channels that can deal with that.
Absolutely. It's an escapism, and I think just the only thing to really comment on this is NASCAR has always taken a lot of pride in the national anthem and having the military at the racetrack, VIP tours for armed forces people and families, and having the Memorial Day weekend paint schemes, the 4th of July, Veterans Day weekend. And I don't know if a lot of people realize this about NASCAR, but they actually did change their policy about 12, 13 years ago, more or less. Drivers used to be strapped in their cars during the national anthem. And NASCAR wanted the drivers to be a part of the national anthem. Stand there with your teammates, put your hand over your heart, do what you have to do, but be with your teammates and all your personnel. Excuse me. And then after the national anthem finishes, there's a 5-minute cool down period before they give the command to start engines. But definitely a lot of other headlines going on this week too.
Yeah, absolutely. It appears that Phoenix International Raceway is going to be changing its name starting in 2018. According to an announcement, the track will be known as ISM Raceway starting next season. Ingenuity Sun Media, a solar energy equipment supplier in New Jersey, will hold the naming rights to the speedway for the next 10 years. The paper also reported that the company will be involved in fan experiences with new technology planned for this speedway. And as a matter of fact, we're going to do an interview with Michael Waltrip tomorrow live from Phoenix International. We'll still call it that for now. So we will have more information on it. But it involves, ISM was actually a sponsor of the race last weekend in New Hampshire. So it involves a lot of technology that's actually coming to the raceway. Of course, the construction has been going on there, and they'll have the race in November, but it still won't be complete. But it'll involve a new screen and some more media because a lot of the stadiums are going much more high tech, and they're able to offset the cost of that. Plus, I guess 100 million or something is the number that they're talking about. That's basically going to secure the fact that they're going to be able to cover the NASCAR and the IndyCar races. So it's neat to see that there are some sponsors with some deep pockets, even though I wonder if some of that's really kind of in kind with all of this very expensive media.
Sure, and we were there in January when they announced the DC Solar Project and Project Phoenix that was coming to the Speedway. 2 years of development over time. They were going to redo fan experiences. They wanted more people involved. They're going to have an area for the fans to come to the infield, a pedestrian access tunnel under the start-finish line. So there's a lot coming with this, and I think maybe a lot of it needed to be paid for. ISM going to come in and give the sponsorship with that.
Well, I mean, somebody's got to pay for it, and I don't think that they're going to be able to get it in ticket prices. As things continue to go on, I think it's going to be neat. And a lot of the drivers have really embraced the changes that are coming as well. And of course, we talk a lot about Twitter on this show. So a lot of the media and being able to interact and bring people in from the outside as a part of your experience, whether even it's shooting some stuff, some Facebook Live and stuff. But Brooklyn, I kind of wonder, you've been out to Phoenix, you've seen it. I mean, what are your thoughts about? Does it raise your excitement level the next time that you go to a race out in Phoenix?
Phoenix was my first NASCAR race that I ever attended, and I was really little, so I'm trying to remember back. But I mean, you never forget that first time. But I think that it's going to be great. I mean, I'm excited. I'll definitely go. I'm super excited for it. I think it's going to bring more fans, and I will definitely go back to Phoenix. And
I think it's the beginning of maybe a second stint on this era, because 10, 15 years ago, we saw sponsors come in, have the naming rights to tracks, Infineon Raceway, Auto Club Speedway, Lowe's Motor Speedway, and we kind of saw that die over the last few years. And currently, Auto Club Speedway is the only track on the circuit to have a sponsor with the naming rights to their track. So maybe Phoenix is paving the way, because the way I see it, the TV deal is coming up in about 5 or 6 years, and who knows how much that's going to get negotiated for. And a lot of that money does go towards the racetracks, whatever NASCAR negotiates. And maybe the tracks see it as an opportunity. We're not sure on how much money we're going to get this time around on the TV contract, and we have to go out and find other revenue streams to make up what we could potentially lose.
Well, of course, I was personally involved with selling the naming rights out at Sandia Speedway, and we sold it to Napa. And part of the thought is when you refer to the venue, you're always using their name. And as long as you're properly marketing and you're marketing in all areas, I mean, you can actually easily lose count of the number of times that you would say Napa Speedway, or that you would say ISM Speedway, or whatever you want to call it. There's the value, whether it's in print, whether it's a radio show, whether it's a TV show, you're always referring to the venue by its name. And so that's where the naming rights are of tremendous value, is because you don't know where the TV deal is going. You don't know where any of those things are going. But anytime we're not going to refer to it as PIR anymore, because that's going to be our obligation. Like Monster Energy came in. There's a lot of people that were really frustrated because those were Sprint Cup. They were Sprint Cup victories. Why are they called Monster Energy victories now? Because that's what the name of the series is right now. So the proper way to announce it is going to be ISM, and I better get it right, whether it's Speedway or whatever they choose to call it. That's how we're going to have to refer to it. There's where the real value is that most people don't understand, is when we sit around and we talk about it. How many times have we mentioned their name today? How are they going to get their name in content? Because content is what drives advertising and media today, is that's really where all the money is. And I think a lot of people don't understand, why did Lowe's continue to stay with Jimmy Johnson, taking it off of the Speedway, because clearly they didn't feel that the value is there, or the price tag became so big. I mean, how are you going to be able to pay for it? I mean, that's where you're looking at, I'm actually surprised that Monster Energy has that deep of pockets, because it made sense from Sprint. I mean, because it's a technology-based, company. I mean, sure. More and more money. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I was thinking about, kind of locally, is like the pit that they changed to Wise Pies Arena. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, most people, AKA the pit, because the pit's the pit. But I mean, Wise Pies Arena, now that it's in the pit, everyone knows about it, and that's what it's referred to now.
Well, what's funny about that, because I sat through a whole thing of how they changed the names, because it's now Dream Style Arena, and it's called the Pit, because the Pit is actually the nickname. So it's actually not in the name. So that whole AKA thing was just silly. Yeah. And actually, because when you call it the Pit, you're referring to it by its nickname. So, I mean, it's no problem. So having to have both is just a little ridiculous. Yeah. And at the same time, I do got to wonder, when the people that do refer to it as the Pit in the media, I mean, are they taking something away from Dream Style, the Dream Style Arena, or the Dream Style Stadium? So, I mean, but I get your point totally. Yeah. I mean, and Wise Pies, we were totally thinking about, who's Wise Pies?
I know. I had never heard of it.
Wow, I had never heard of it. Well, we all have heard of it now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Case in point, subliminally keeps getting mentioned. It gets in the back of your head. Well, and there was somebody who was supposed to be on the entry list this week out at Dover. They got taken off. You have more on that.
Yeah, Derek Cope will be back behind the wheel in the Cup Series this weekend at Dover, or not. The official entry list that Cope entered as driver of the 00 Chevrolet for Starcom Racing, a brand new team for NASCAR's Top Series. But the team announced Tuesday that they're withdrawing their entry from the race and would debut at a later date. No word on when the team will take their debut. The 1990 Daytona 500 champion last competed at Richmond Raceway for the Premium Motorsports before parting ways with the team. Cope has competed in 13 races this season, with the best finished of 31st twice.
Yeah, we knew he was not going to be out of a ride that long, because that man knows how to market himself. He has sponsorship, always has something on his fire suit, something on his car. But they're going to have to wait a little bit. And we kind of talked about this a few weeks ago. Did Derek Cope run his last race at Richmond because of the whole Martin Truex debacle? Obviously not. He's going to be back at a later date. But I don't know. It just seems like there's a missed opportunity here too because the entry list is not full.
You know, it may, and you're going to have to refresh my memory on how this went down with the whole Jimmy Johnson thing, and you were talking about a backmarker car. You remember what I'm talking about?
Yes.
The story? So tell us that story.
Sure. So in Kansas a few years ago, we were talking with Mike Wallace, who was driving in the NASCAR Cup Series at the time, and it was either Jimmy Johnson or Jeff Gordon who had made a comment on the radio.
Hey,
let's move this roadblock out of the way. This moving roadblock needs to get out of the way because he's multiple laps down. So kind of the same thing with Cope and Truex from a few weeks ago. Truex voiced his displeasure, regular season champion, and he's pissed off in his photos because of what happened with Derek Cope.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I saw that, I immediately thought about that because I did make the mistake when I was racing one time. We had another driver on the track that was probably about 8 laps down, and on a quarter mile, that's quite a ways down. And I had suggested that maybe if somebody was 10 laps down, they get the black flag and they take them off, so real racing can happen. Now I remember that her dad wasn't real happy at my comment, and so basically there was a little bit of discussion in the pits, and of course, you know, it's all about car count.
Sure.
And so, you know, we had 24 bugs on the quarter mile, and you could have debated whether we should have had a B main, would have made more sense. It would have taken care of that. But yeah, that is an issue. So when I saw that, I was immediately trying to remember, okay, because he didn't like those comments at all.
Oh no, he's like, I'm going to go talk with Johnson. Maybe get to talk with Mr. Hendrick as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other headline we're following too, Brett Moffitt will continue to run with BK Racing for the remainder of the 2018 season. FrenchReg.com is reporting that Moffitt will continue to wield the number 83 for the Cup Series team. Moffitt has been driving for the team throughout the season, earning a best finish of 32nd a couple of times. The 2015 Cup Series Rookie of the Year was driving full-time for Red Horse Racing before the team shut down because of sponsorship. No word on what Moffitt's 2018 plans hold at this time, but we did catch up with Dustin Albino, the reporter who broke the story.
It looks like they are going to be together for the majority of the rest of the season. It looks like the rest of the season, except maybe Talladega, from what Ron was telling me. And that's in the story. But yeah, we'll see what happens going forward with Brett Moffitt because, I mean, obviously earlier this year he had the heartbreak of Red Horse Racing shutting down, and he didn't even know until after the team knew, after the Charlotte race, which is kind of just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, here's a guy who we thought was out of the Cup Series at the end of the 2015 season. Now he's back running some races. Good to see a guy coming back who we thought was probably never going to run again.
Oh, yeah.
Well, in Red Horse Racing, I mean, their truck campaign was fantastic, and you know, I mean, they've had a lot of success, but that was very surprising and extremely sudden.
Absolutely. Well, we got a lot more coming up on the break. On the other side, legendary local racer Lyle Greenberg stops by. You're watching the New Mexico Motorsports Report here on the Proview Networks.
Garden Sorts Team Sales is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Get into the game. Garden Schwartz Team Sales features fine products and apparel from Wilson, Schutt Sports, Speedline, and Russell Athletics. We offer custom embroidery and screen printing services for all of your school or club needs, from team uniforms to school leather jackets. Specializing in all sports and serving all communities, from big schools to small schools, from up north to down south, or all points in between. Garden Schwartz Team Sales. For great prices, friendly staff, and quality products, call Garden Schwartz Team Sales today at 1-800-880-7767. That's 1-800-880-7767. Since 1939, Garden Schwartz Team Sales is a proud supporter of New Mexico youth athletics.
Hoops NM Basketball Center is coming soon. 10 full courts broken into 2 wings for ultimate basketball and volleyball play. Locker rooms, a lounge area, a pro shop, and a full snack bar will all be a part of a great experience. Convenient parking and access will make the Hoops NM Basketball Center a premier facility for league play and competitive regional tournaments. With over 9,000 square feet, Hoops NM Basketball Center will take court sports play to another level in our community. Courts are regulation high school size with wood floors and seating for approximately 350 per court. Major sponsors and supporters are being assembled now. If you're interested, contact Dan Serrano at 249-7994. Send them an email, hoopsnm@aol.com. That's hoopsnm@aol.com. Hoops NM Basketball Center, a premier sports facility serving our community.
Gecko's Bar and Tapas, a proud supporter of Proview Networks. It's been a fan favorite spot for food lovers and sports fans. With not one, but two great locations, including outdoor patio, an atmosphere you won't want to miss. Gecko's, off Academy and in Nob Hill.
Carmody Medical provides solutions for your everyday needs. Hot and cold compression wraps provide therapeutic compression for the shoulder, hip, and knee. The therapy wraps are constructed of an insulated outer fabric and a ventilated cotton pocket to protect the body. Elastic belts allow mobility and deliver a gentle, adjustable compression. The reusable therapy packs can be removed from the pouch and placed into the freezer. Contact Jim for more information.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Welcome back to the New Mexico Motorsports Report here on the Proview Networks. I'm Dominic Aragon.
And I'm David Swope. And joining us is one of our good friends here is Lyle Greenberg. How you doing, Lyle?
I'm doing great, David. Thanks.
Well, welcome back. Where were you last weekend?
Last weekend I was in Tulsa, at Tulsa Raceway Park, at the NHRA Nitro Nationals Nostalgia Race.
Wow, and saw some great shots, but we got some photos here I wanted to show the listeners so that they could actually check it out. Here's the shot of you, and is that your Nitro?
Actually, that's Ray Stringer's Nitro funny car from down in Alamogordo. Yep. I've been helping him out a little bit. It's a steel big block Chevy on Nitro, so it's a pretty unique combination.
That's fantastic, and of course, you know, it takes a team, man. I mean, in order to get it all done, it looks like quite a crowd you got there.
You know, when we go racing, it does. It takes a lot of folks. I mean, I joke that we can't even start the car without 3 people. And you know, honestly, to do the between rounds maintenance and everything else, we really need 4 folks. Now, when we race in Albuquerque, we get a lot more than that because, of course, it's hometown and everybody wants to come watch.
I was going to say, and then of course, you know, you can't think Greenbergs without thinking about Rachel and Jennifer. What's it like, you know, kind of as a family? I mean, they grew up around racing, and you know, they've won some championships themselves. I mean, how does it feel to, you know, just have the whole family atmosphere when you head out to the track?
Well, it's pretty fun. I mean, now that we're back to with just me racing, the girls aren't racing. They're still extremely supportive of me. They're there. They're always there helping, and it's great because they've been there and done that, and they know what it's like, and they know what I need when we're doing stuff, and extremely helpful. But of course, I'm so proud of their racing accomplishments. The stuff that both Jennifer and Rachel has done has been fabulous.
That's fantastic. So we're going to actually show a little bit. We'll talk road racing here in a minute, but I want to show one of the videos of you in the Western State Altered doing a burnout and taking off down the track. I mean, what's it like to be in a vehicle like that?
Well, when you launch the car, I always kind of say, you know, picture yourself sitting at a stoplight and having a semi run into the back of you.
Oh my God!
Because I mean, it's a 3.5 G launch, something like that. The car goes 0 to 100 miles an hour in under a second, and you know, it's a crazy deal. I mean, it is. Things are happening fast.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. I've been doing this now for 43 years.
Wow.
I don't know how you do that when you're only 27 years old.
Yeah, but you know, time machine.
It's a time machine. But yeah, I was joking. I was actually hoping to go run a Fuel Altered for a guy in Tucson this weekend, and I was excited because that would have been the 39th race car that I will have driven in my career.
Oh my gosh.
Now that deal fell through, so we're not not going to get to do that, but I'm trying to get to 40. I want to drive 40 race cars.
So what's next on the radar?
Well, next on the radar is my own car. We're still putting together my Nitro Nostalgia Funny car. It's been a slower process than I'd hoped, accumulating parts and that sort of thing. But actually, the reason I was in Tulsa was I had just driven to Indianapolis and had dropped my funny car off at a shop in Brownsburg, the center of the racing universe, of course. I dropped it off in Brownsburg for some work to be done on it, and I was on my way home, and I knew there was a race in Tulsa, and you know, you go through Tulsa to get from Indianapolis to Albuquerque, so there's a race, gotta go.
Well, and I would know that you would definitely find another race. So we got a video on one of your passes here, and it really kind of show you, I mean, how fast it really is.
Oh yeah, this is here at Albuquerque. Kind of see the car shaking a little bit. Every time it's shaking, it's spinning the tire in a little bit. That was a 675, 208 mile an hour run, something like that.
Oh my gosh, I mean, that's phenomenal.
And at Albuquerque, that's really impressive because, of course, up here at the altitude, we can't make as much power with the cars and stuff. So if you get down into the sixes, you're going pretty quick.
Yeah, and you know, you've had success at all different forms of racing. We showed a shot earlier there of your road racing car, but we also got some video. If we can roll the road racing video, I think the camera shot is great. Tell us where this is.
So that's an onboard video at the Vintage National Championships at Circuit of the Americas in Austin. That, of course, is the same track that they run the Formula One U.S. Grand Prix at. And we ran that race a few years ago with the Formula Ford, and I was actually tickled. We got third at probably the biggest vintage Formula Ford race of the season. The people that beat me were all professional drivers. I joke that I got first in the old man class or got first in the non-pro class. I'm not sure which, but we felt pretty good about how we did at that race.
It's quite a few cars there. How big was the field?
So that was a combination of Formula Fords and Formula Bs.
Yeah.
There was, I think, 22, 24 Formula Bs and 26 or 27 Formula Fords.
Wow. So you had 50 cars. Hey, is it like a 3-mile track? How long is that track?
So, boy, that's a great question. It's a very long track. I don't remember how long. The key thing that sticks in my mind is the back straight. We're coming up on the back straight right now. The back straight from the apex onto the straight to the apex off the straight in my car, 27 seconds wide open.
Oh my.
27 seconds, just doing your thing.
So 5-speed?
4-speed.
4-speed?
So that's a 1.6 liter 4-cylinder Ford engine, makes probably a whopping 115 horsepower, 4-speed, but you know, kind of fun stuff. I mean, no doubt about it. You know,
so were you on the rev limiter? I mean,
well, you try to gear it so it's not on the rev limiter.
Right.
But you know, that track or that straight is so long. With the gearing we had in it, the car probably was going 126 miles an hour halfway down the straight, and maybe 128 at the end of the straight, because by halfway down the straight, it was pretty much done.
Yeah, and because you give up, I mean, there's several turns on that track too, and so you give up the turns if you're going for the straightaway speed.
Well, and there's a lot of drafting involved on that deal too. If we'd have stuck with that video, I made that pass going onto the straight there, and that guy drafted right back around me.
Wow.
Did you guys have any spotting help?
No, you know, the track's so long and everything. Some of the guys have radios on board, but none of us have the budgets to have people spotting from different places in the track or anything. No, you're pretty much on your own.
So just so that you know, I did cut it, you know, so that, you know, we saw the pass. But
I appreciate that, because that pass looked great.
Well, and that's, you know, I mean, if somebody wanted to go check it out, it's on YouTube. It's about 26 minutes long. But of course, you know, I mean, the family business, being involved with AMSOIL as well for so many years. I mean, talk about being able to really kind of put your passion in a business. I mean, your father Paul, I mean, did a tremendous job, and my dad remembers him back, you know, racing, you know, 442s, and you know, I mean, Greenberg's, other than me misspelling it in the first magazine, which was funny because the spell check didn't catch the B-E-R for the B-U-R. But anyway, I mean, everybody's got to know the Greenbergs, and probably been over and shopped at AMSOIL before.
Well, we've certainly got a great business there. You know, my dad Paul was one of the guys that built the track, the drag strip here in Albuquerque. He was the treasurer of the New Mexico Timing Association when they built it. The story goes that they used to go out there and he'd dig post holes and I'd run up and down the track on my tricycle. Don't know if that's true or not, but it's a great story.
What kind of ETs were you turning?
I don't know. They were probably pretty slow. I was probably pedaling my heart out though. But he got on the AMSOIL thing very early on. He became a dealer for them in the early '80s, and his dealership here in Albuquerque is certainly one of the probably 50 or 100 biggest in the country, and certainly probably one of the 1 or 2 or 3 biggest in the state. And when he passed away last November, my mom wanted to kind of keep the legacy going. She didn't want to sell the business. And that meant that I've kind of stepped in and I'm running a lot of the business and doing a lot of things for her. And, it's a good thing. I'm glad I'm doing it. It has kind of made it a little difficult to get the funny car running. Probably one of the reasons that I have not been as successful as I'd hoped in getting the car running by the end of the year here.
Yeah. Well, sometimes, you have to work, and in this case, that would be 2 jobs for you. But I know, it's a family effort, though, and Jennifer is down there, and Jeffrey, and as a matter of fact, Nancy, your mom was even down there one day. I was like,
actually, she goes in there 2 or 3. She goes in there 2 or 3 times a week. Jeffrey, of course, is doing the lion's share of the work down there. He's down there selling oil every day. Jennifer goes in, I go in, but Jeffrey's really the mainstay there.
Yeah. Well, I notice you're also a keeper of a lot of memorabilia because I'll see you on Facebook posting a lot of things. I've always wanted to ask you this and never had a chance. Actually, how in the world do you keep track of all of that?
Well, I guess the first thing I got to say is I have honestly almost a photographic memory.
Okay.
And when something pops up on Facebook or something, it just pops into my head what it is or where it was or who it was or whatever. But I've got a whole room in my garage devoted to memorabilia. I've probably got, I don't know, probably 10,000 drag racing newspapers, magazines, handout cards, you name it. I've just got all sorts of stuff. And of course, all these years, my wife's been going, why are you keeping all that stuff? What in the world? And of course, now in this new world we've got with Facebook, where you share all this stuff, I can finally say, see, there really are people who really enjoy this stuff. It's not just me.
Well, I think she was thinking maybe about the square footage that you've designated to that, and thought maybe it'd be a nice place to have an office or some workout equipment or anything like that.
She pretty much knows the garage is just mine, and it always will be.
How big is your garage?
It's not very big.
It's not?
It is not. No, I have a very small garage, and what that means is with all of my racing stuff, I have stuff scattered all over Albuquerque.
Okay.
I literally have race cars in 3 different locations.
So now we know with a photographic memory that parts can't go missing at different locations.
Oh no, that's assuming too much. I still lose stuff just like everybody else does.
When's your next race?
Well, the next race that I'm probably going to go to is, I was supposed to go to Tucson this coming weekend, and that's probably fallen through. I think we'll probably go out to a national event in Las Vegas in October. My daughter Jennifer and her husband Sean Guthrie and Connor, their son, we're all going to go on a little family trip and go to a race just to watch. And then I'm hoping to test the new funny car in January or February over in Arizona. Hopefully we'll have it running and start testing.
Awesome. Hey, thank you for coming and joining the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Had a lot of fun.
Thanks.
Absolutely. There's a whole lot more. Stay with us. You're watching the New Mexico Motorsports Report here on the Proview Networks.
Car Crafters, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog!
Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened?
Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car Crafters, it's like it never happened.
Christy Mae's Restaurant is locally owned and operated with a family-friendly atmosphere. Their array of homemade comfort food is just like your mom's. From homemade chicken pot pie to their famous chicken salad on a croissant, Christy Mae's even offers lunch catering. Christy Mae's restaurant is located at 1400 San Pedro Drive, Northeast. They offer drive-in, carry-out, and catering. Open Monday through Saturday, 10:30 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Dave & Buster's is your destination for fun. Eat delicious chef-crafted food. Try sizzling favorites and new creations from our talented chefs. Drink the coolest cocktail creations. Play the hottest new games to win awesome prizes. And watch all the games in the best sports bar ever. Only at Dave & Buster's.
Duke City Sports Bar. Proud supporter of Proview Sports and New Mexico Youth Athletics. Catch all the sports action from high school, college, pros, and MMA on one of our 35 HD TVs. Start your night off right with any selection from our delicious menu prepared with fresh, never frozen ingredients. Duke City Sports Bar, Albuquerque's newest sports bar. Located on Eubank and Montgomery, dial 505-433-4020.
And thank you for staying here with us on the New Mexico Motorsports Report on the Proview Networks. Time for a check of what's happening local this weekend. Here's Brooklyn Green.
All right, so this weekend around the state, we've got a couple things going on. This Saturday at ABQ Dragway, we have our Mopar versus the World. On Sunday, we have a bracket race, a high-octane shootout. Out at Uranian Capital, located in Grants, New Mexico, we have the end of the season blowout, racing Friday and Saturday night on the Clay Oval. So if you have a hobby or a street stock, an X-Mod or a mini sprint, or you just love dirt racing, head out to Grants and show your support for your local racetracks.
And that local town out there loves their racing last week until next year, so should be a lot of fun out there. You going to be going?
I'm going to try. I have some things to do on Saturday, but on Friday, I mean, my best friend Joshua Jackson will be racing his modified, hopefully, so I'll definitely go out there with him. So I hope I can make it. They always put on a good show.
Yeah.
It's always good racing out there.
And a lot of people turn out, and the races go a little late, but people love to stay out there at the racetrack.
Oh, yeah. Especially, I mean, it's always entertaining. I mean, even if the races do run a little late.
Sure. Did you ever run at Uranium Capital?
I did not, but I have been out to Uranium Capital. It's a neat track, and actually I love watching the sunset out there. It's tremendous. But I got to ask you, is it A-Mod or is it an X-Mod? I know that Josh has been trying to build an A-Mod.
You know, they actually sold his X-Mod, I think. So he'll be racing his A-Mod, hopefully for the first time. I mean, today, I work with the Jacksons, so I was over there, and I was like, I overheard Bobby talking about going out to Grants, and then I asked Joshua, I was like, you racing this weekend? He's like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, well, you better figure it out, because if you are, I'll be tagging along. So I was like, Joshua, talk to your papa, because you might be racing.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And as we turn towards national headlines, Truck Series points. Trucks finished up there this past weekend out of Kentucky Speedway. New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and Christopher Bell wrapped up the win. He's moving on to the next round. And the Truck Series eliminates 2 drivers, so they'll have a round of 2 with 6 drivers in 2 weeks. But Chase Briscoe, John Hunter Nemechek looking on the outside right now.
I tell you, the one thing that really impresses me actually is Kaz Gralla. I didn't see that he was going to have as much do as well, but I'm glad to see that. Of course, Johnny Sauter, don't give him any room, because of course he had the whole thing that blew up between Ben Rhodes and Johnny Sauter this week. Mess with the bull, give you the horn. So at least it's a little exciting to see. Basically you got the new guys, the new kids on the block, and then of course you got the old gunslinger. So it's gonna make the Truck Series a lot of fun as we head down the final stretch.
And John Hunter Nemechek in a lot of trouble there with 2 wins this season, and that's a team that already has struggled with sponsorship. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks. But let's also take a look at the NASCAR Xfinity standings after the race weekend out at Kentucky Speedway. Justin Allgaier and Cole Custer are on top of the points, but when you look at that graphic, nobody is highlighted in green. Nobody is safe right now with the win from Tyler Reddick.
Yeah, that I was actually going to ask you why it wasn't highlighted. So I appreciate you letting us know that. Which is funny, because I thought, okay, now we're going to get to the Xfinity, the playoffs, and we don't have the Cup drivers in there, and it's not going to upset the apple cart. Look at that. I mean, and what a run that he had to get that done. Brendan Poole actually made some great moves, and Daniel Hamrick with their strong finishes really moved on up. But Jeremy Clemens, as we talked, with that miracle win on the road course, is really in trouble.
Is he one and done?
I think he might, and if you think about the fact that he just doesn't have the money.
Exactly, or the speed. And Michael Annett with the JRM guys sitting there in 11th in points. Blake Cook is 10th. He's a guy who made it to the second round last year.
Right.
3 or 4 points away from just making the Final Four there. Brendan Gaughan, another driver who was just a few points away from making that Final Four. He's on the cutoff right now, 8 points back of Ryan Reed. So there's a lot of racing that could still be done here. Like you said, Brendan Poole had a great performance. Justin Allgaier, though, at one point he was 39th, 2 laps down in that race in Kentucky. And utilized the long green flag run, took some waiver rounds. Justin Allgaier put up a championship performance, a clutch performance on Saturday night.
Well, and basically when this whole thing, when the playoffs started, it was really all about JR Motorsports and who was going to join them in the Final Four. And Cole Custer sure looked like he's ready to party. And of course, we got a seat warming up for him at Stewart Haas Racing. So I think it's going to be a good battle. We'll see. It's just the first weekend. Let's see what we got after this weekend.
Sure. And as we look at the Premier Series, the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series points, they've had 2 races thus far in the first round of the playoffs. You see highlighted there Martin Truex Jr. and Kyle Busch, but we have elimination weekend upcoming at Dover International Speedway, which you will be at this weekend. Kind of give us your thoughts on what this point situation is going to look like after Dover.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it because that's one thing that it really has. The bar has definitely risen. Of course, you had the contact between Austin Dillon and Kevin Harvick, and so and Kevin even said it on his podcast today actually that he kind of regretted his involvement in the initial contact there. But I think it's going to be great. This really shows how the format works because having good regular season success and going for the stage wins and the stage points have made all the difference in the world. Look at Matt Kenseth. Matt Kenseth basically came in by the skin of his teeth, and now he's sitting 6th. This is a perfect example of why this works, and having a late season charge can really make all the difference. But of course, we've talked about this whole Toyota versus Ford and Chevy. I mean, look at the dominance of Toyota. Ricky Stenhouse somehow got himself sitting in 12th. If Ricky Stenhouse was somehow to make it into the second round, then you've got Talladega that gives this guy a shot.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's absolutely interesting. But then Joey Logano, what a run to come from the back. He is not in the picture and had a fantastic run. We would have been talking about Joey Logano on this show if Joey Logano would have made the points, which is why all of this stuff matters, and the encumbered win and all of that, of those storylines. But
and
looking
Austin
forward
Dillon
to it.
right there, like how you said, rewarding regular season success.
Right.
Playoffs start today. Dillon gets bumped because of Stenhouse's 2 wins to 1. Casey Kane had a great run on Sunday. He was running in the top 15 before they had some suspension issues that knocked him out, and he finished 36th.
Well, and I noticed that Ryan Newman sitting there in 14th. I also did notice on the B-roll for Phoenix International that she had the car from his last win, and so I thought that was a little subliminal thing. I mean,
if I'm not here next week, it's because they bullied me off this show.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding.
Well, anyway, Jimmy Johnson is sitting in 7th, and I really wonder, with the collapse, Chase Elliott in 9th, and of course Casey Kane in 16th. I mean, that's not a good sign for Hendrick.
No, absolutely not. And we've talked about it on the show. Johnson, look, he has 3 wins this season, but 2 of those wins came with just a few laps led, and statistically, he's having one of his worst seasons. Hendrick Motorsports altogether as a collaborative has had their worst season to date, I think, in a long time, or at least in recent memory. Kane got the win at Indy on some luck, on some late race restarts, but yeah, he's looking at elimination, and Chase Elliott, no wins yet. Already in his 2nd year, so it's crazy to think the driver of the 24 car has yet to reach victory lane.
Yeah, that's surprising to me because I really would have thought he won by now, and he had a good run, but it just doesn't seem like they can put it all together. So it really comes down to looking at the manufacturer and the package that they put together. And I tell you, Martin Truex is pretty much unstoppable. Yeah. I don't know what anybody's going to do. Now, granted, we get to that final race, you can't count out my car. Kyle Larson, at Homestead. I mean, he does really, really well at that track. So I don't know if it's really a two-car battle, because I was thinking, who would be on the outside that could jump up and actually get a win at Dover? I mean, because I think that would be super exciting. Will it take a big wreck to take out a lot of the big names in order to get a no name? Who do you think on the outside could actually steal a win in Dover?
I think maybe Kurt Busch, because of his success at Dover the last few years. He has won before at Dover in 2011, but you know what we're going to have to be watching it play out here for New Mexico? You're going to be having a trackside seat this upcoming weekend, so definitely a little envious of that, but I'm sure you're going to enjoy yourself out there, and we look forward to some stories from next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've never been to Delaware, so that's going to be
just
pretty
cross
neat.
them off the list of tracks, right?
Yeah, we can slowly start checking them off. But the other thing I'm super excited about is I'm actually going to ESPN headquarters. So I'm going to the other Bristol, Bristol, Connecticut. So I'm going to go up there and see the set with Mike and Mike and all that kind of stuff. And so hoping that I catch up with Ricky Craven. Sure. Because maybe someday we can get Ricky Craven on the show or something of that nature. But
we look forward to those headlines next week. We're going to talk about those all on the next edition of the New Mexico Motorsports Report here on the Proview Networks.